Hello and welcome. It is the third Wednesday of May and it is time for another segment of Budget Basics. I am Charles Beasley, the budget guy, here with Successful Living with Reginald Campbell, and I'm here tonight to continue our discussion from last month about budget basics. And I got two very good topics for you tonight. One very popular, it has been in the last month or so based on the questions that I've received. So give me 15 minutes and I will get off your screen. So hopefully I can impart some knowledge and give you something that'll help you with your budget and with your finances. So let's get into it. So the first topic we want to talk about tonight is emergency fund. We've talked about it before, but got some updates, got some new information, got some questions from it. So just want to answer those and try to give some clarity and hopefully some finite conclusion to people's questions what they asked about the topic. One question I got was about the amount of coverage that your fund should be, and as you know, emergency funds are to handle emergencies and things that pop up that we don't expect to happen to us over time. So there's a lot of information out there about what emergency funds should be and what and how much they should be. The average basically is 3 to 6 months of your income should be in your emergency fund. That same amount should be in your emergency fund to cover any type of issues or concerns. Not knowing what you're going to face or what you're going to be confronted with, 3 to 6 months usually covers if you are unemployed or you have health issues or there's a big major concern that pops up with your home or your car or anything that is of significance to you that you need to immediately fix or maintain. So 3 to 6 months is what they say. But what if you don't have one? That's another question I got. So if you don't have an emergency fund, my advice to you is to start to build one. You can't build that kind of money into an account overnight. So I would say put a plan together. It may take some sacrifice, but you need to have an emergency fund, and I'll tell you why in a few minutes. But let me bring you up to speed. I've been doing some reading lately, and there's a lot of things going on with the economy, a lot of things going on with tariffs, and a lot of financial analysts and a lot of financial planners are saying that the country may be headed toward a recession. I said may be headed toward a recession. I didn't say we were. I said maybe, and this is what I've read. I'm not an expert, not an economist. This is what I've been reading, is that everyone is thinking that the country may be headed toward a recession. And with that being said, their recommendation is that if you do have an emergency fund, which you should have, they are suggesting you maximize it. So at 3 to 6 month threshold, they're saying you should probably push to get to the 6 month side of the threshold as far as money in an account designated for your emergency fund. And the reason for that is everything has risen because of inflation and because of the tariffs and all the different things that are going on right now in the market. So the more money is going to be needed if there's an issue in your life or if something happens, a loss of a job or something like that. You're going to need more money with all of the rising costs. And the actual number one rising cost right now that people don't really realize unless you are spending a lot of time at these facilities is medical costs. Medical costs have risen higher than inflation, and they still remain high. So that is a big concern, especially not knowing if and when or if you're going to get sick or not. You have to take that into account as far as your planning, or your contingency planning, I should say. So just a couple of interesting facts that I came across in my reading. It's very interesting that 1 in 5 adults in the United States don't have an emergency fund. They don't have anything. And that's really concerning, because if you don't have an emergency fund, that means that any emergency that comes up, you're using bill money or money that's supposed to be allocated somewhere else to cover that emergency, which puts you in debt, behind, and scrambling to try to stay afloat. And once you start that death spiral, financial analysts will tell you that it is hard to recover from unless you have some type of additional sources of income, or if you get a bonus or something like that. It's very hard to recover once you start getting that death spiral of getting behind, because you did not have money to cover emergencies that come up. So that's why it is paramount that you have an emergency fund. And there's an intangible benefit with the emergency fund, and that's less stress. Reports are saying that people that have something saved, some type of emergency fund, whether it's $500, $2,000, $5,000, whatever, something in an account for emergencies, are a lot less stressed than those that don't have an emergency fund and are trying to live life and make sure that everything is handled and taken care of. So that intangible benefit of less stress is important, because as we get older, stress becomes more and more of a factor in our lives that lead to additional diseases and long-term issues, health issues, that we really don't want. So remember, keep your emergency fund in a separate account. If you have an emergency fund, put it in an account that doesn't mingle with your other money. And most financial experts say put it in a separate bank where it is hard to get to, because if you have access online, if you have access to that money, it becomes easy for you to tap into it. So put it somewhere in another bank where you don't have access, where you have to physically go to the bank and use extra effort, because that will help keep you away from using it. Last thing I'll say about emergency funds is if you have an emergency fund set up a direct deposit to put money into it. And that way you don't have to think about growing that fund. It's automatically growing. That money is automatically being deposited into that account every week, every bi-weekly, every month, whatever. But you're growing that fund and you're not having to worry about it. And it is something that is going to be there for you, and you don't have to really give it a lot of maintenance. So that being said, I'm going to move to the other topic. Talked about a topic, I think 1 or 2 classes ago. It really got popular, a lot of hits from it. It was the necessities versus niceties. And we talked about that. When you build your budget, you're going to have necessities, which are things like utilities, shelter, clothing, food. All those are necessities to live. And then you're going to have some niceties, like going out to dinner, restaurant eating, entertainment, subscriptions, things like that. So, you have your necessities and your niceties. You look with your niceties, what you want to do is you want to make sure, one, that you identify both in your budget. Know what your necessities are, know what your niceties are. And I would say with your niceties, there's going to be different levels. You're going to have niceties that are, I guess, monthly or repetitive. And then you have niceties that come and go, things like that. Make sure you capture all of them. If you don't do it but once a quarter or something like that, make sure it's still in there in your budget, so it is always accounted for and you're able to know. But when you start looking at niceties and you say your budget starts to get tight, one of the things that you can do is you can look at less expensive options for your niceties. So let's take an example. Let's say you like going to the movies. Well, going to the movies is very expensive. It's, I would say, on average, about $15 to $20 per person to go to the movies. If things start getting tight and your budget starts getting pinched, maybe you want to look at maybe watching a movie on demand at home and saving, $15 for one person. And of course, that magnifies if you're talking about multiple people. But, you're talking about $5 versus $20. So maybe you want to look at doing something like that. Or let's say, you do takeout because, some nights, you just can't get home, can't cook, don't have the time or whatever. Look at coupons. Look at the online apps for these different fast food restaurants because they normally give discounts and normally they give free things via their apps, because most fast food restaurants now have apps, and of course they have coupons that they put out to, of course, gain your business. Look at using those to actually help save you some money towards your budget. Also with clothes and food, you don't always need to buy brand name stuff. Sometimes the no name stuff is just as good. A very good example, when we first got married, me and my wife, we went shopping, and my wife was used to eating Domino's sugar her whole life. Well, the no-name store brand sugar was $2 cheaper, and you really didn't get a difference in taste. So she saw that we could save $2 on a bag of sugar just by going with the no-name version versus going with the name brand version. Those type of things you need to think about, because those type of things you can save money. Now, there's some things I know where the brand name is better, and it is clearly better, especially for you chefs out there. There's some brand name items or ingredients that you put into your meals and your baking recipes that it's non-negotiable, because there is a difference in the taste versus the no-name brand. I get that. But there are a lot of opportunities where you can save money by going with no-name brand versus name brand. So know where you are with your budget. The whole purpose is for you to have complete and total command of your budget. Know what's what, the ins and outs, and know how things are going in that particular week, month, whatever, as far as your budget is concerned, so you know how to react. And that brings me to the next point. You need to have a reaction plan. And when I say a reaction plan, so as your budget gets pinched and things and costs go up and things get tight, you need to know where you're gonna take money from, where you're gonna reduce money at first, second, third, fourth, fifth. That's a reaction plan. So you're like, okay, my electric bill is $50 more than it was last month. I'm going to not go to the movies for 2 weeks to cover that. That's a reaction plan. You know exactly how you're gonna react to basically what's going on with your budget. Have a reaction plan. So, because what it does is it cuts down on the stress. You know exactly what you're gonna do if things start going up as far as your costs. You know how you're going to address it. So have a reaction plan. Prioritize your niceties. I know that may be hard for some people, but your niceties can be prioritized, and you can say, okay, this is the one that's most expendable, and this is the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. And that way, that goes into your reaction plan, helps you complete your reaction plan, so you know which ones to take money from first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So prioritize your niceties, and then these are some questions you need to ask when you're buying things. Do I need to make this purchase now? A lot of times we do impulse shopping and impulse buying and everything, and it's not the things are not necessarily needed now, and you could probably save that money and it help your budget. But you know, a lot of people see that SALE sign and it sends them into buying mode. And that SLE sign is always going to be there. Something's always going to be on sale. That's how they get you in the stores. Next question you need to ask yourself is, are there cheaper alternatives? So let's say you are a Starbucks person and you love Starbucks, but Starbucks is $7 a cup. Can you make your own coffee? Or can you look at a lesser option that is less than that? Are there alternatives to your nicety? If they're not alternatives to your nicety, are there other options for this product? Like I said, if Starbucks is $8 a cup, and let's say Dunkin' Donuts is $5 a cup, are there other options that's available in this product category that will help you save money? And these are not necessarily permanent things you have to do, but these are things that you can think of, especially when your budget starts getting tight on you. Ways to save money and help you out in a pinch. So again, I'm gonna reiterate, the ideal is for you to have complete command of your budget and your finances. And like I said, in closing, this happens by knowing your budget inside out, understanding what your necessities and niceties are, and 3, having a reaction plan for when your necessity expenses go up. Follow those things, and I guarantee you'll be in a better place. My name's Charles Beasley. Thanks for watching.